I never thought I'd see this with my own eyes. My best friend lying in a pool of blood on my driveway, his face pale, his hand clutching his leg. The gunshot still echoed in my ears, the smell of gunpowder mixing with pine trees around my cabin. And the person holding the smoking gun, not some random intruder. It was the president of my HOA, a woman who just minutes earlier had called 911 on him, accusing him of being a threat. She pulled the trigger like she was swatting a fly. And as I pressed my hands against Alex's wound, I couldn't stop thinking, what was she so desperate to hide that she'd risk everything, even murder, to silence us? When I left the FBI after 15 years of chasing financial criminals, I swore I was done with all that. I was tired of fraud cases, tired of broken families, tired of lies. I wanted peace, so I bought a cabin in Pine Valley Estates. 25 homes, perfect lawns, neighbors who waved at you while walking their dogs. For 18 months, it was paradise. No crime, no drama, just barbecues on Sundays. I thought I had finally escaped the battlefield. But looking back, maybe I was just walking into a different kind of war. Alex came to visit that weekend. He's a financial data analyst, the kind of guy who can see fraud in a spreadsheet the way a bloodhound smells a trail. He said he was just stopping by to help me with retirement investments, but I knew him too well. Curiosity was his drug. And sure enough, he couldn't resist poking around the HOA's financial records while setting up his laptop on my porch. That's when she showed up, Victoria Ashworth. Perfectly styled blonde hair, designer blazer, fake smile plastered across her face. The kind of woman who oozes authority the second she opens her mouth. She called herself our HOA president, but the way she pitched her exclusive community insurance package, it felt more like she was selling us a cult membership. Her tone was polite on the surface, but there was something underneath, something sharp. People with your background understand the value of proper protection, don't they? She said, eyeing me like I was already a problem. My FBI instincts told me to smile and nod, so I declined politely. But Alex? He couldn't help himself. He questioned her about why every neighbor used the same insurance company, why claim approvals were unusually fast. Victoria's jaw tightened, and I saw that little crack in her mask. That was the first time I realized this woman couldn't handle being questioned. Later, Alex showed me numbers that made my blood run cold. 12 major incidents in just 18 months, fires, floods, thefts, all in a neighborhood where nothing like that should happen. And every claim processed within 2 weeks. Too neat, too clean. He even found Pattern's basement floods right after heavy rain forecasts fires while families attended HOA events. The odds of that happening by chance, practically zero. I wanted to ignore it, but I couldn't. I'd felt this chill before, right before uncovering a major fraud ring. And when I glanced across the street, I saw Victoria through the HOA office window on the phone glaring toward us like we were already enemies. The next morning, everything exploded. Sirens filled the street, police cars, a fire truck. Even a hazmat team rolled up to my cabin like we were running a terrorist operation. And at the center of the storm, Victoria clutching a folder telling officers she'd seen suspicious men, Alex and his laptop, doing surveillance on the community. She described his analysis equipment like it was a bomb factory. Neighbors filmed the whole thing, reporters showed up, and suddenly Alex was the villain of Pine Valley. I stood there in my robe, coffee in hand, watching her spin lies so smooth it almost worked. Almost. Because fate threw us a lifeline. Detective Maria Santos arrived. She'd been my ally back in my FBI days, a sharp financial crime investigator who knew a fraudster when she saw one. When I explained what Alex had been analyzing, I watched her expression shift. She told me she'd investigated a suspicious fire in another HOA community tied to the same insurance company, Thorngard. They hadn't had enough evidence then, but Alex's findings looked eerily familiar. For the first time, I thought maybe we weren't crazy. Maybe Victoria was hiding something massive. That night, Alex called me in a panic. He'd uncovered an encrypted file on Victoria's system, something called Final Contingency, D Cabin, my cabin. It was scheduled for tomorrow. His voice was shaking as he said, "David, she's targeting you. She's been inside my laptop deleting evidence, and you're next on her list." My stomach dropped. Retirement was supposed to be safe, but now I was living inside a murder plot. Then she came. Victoria stormed into my yard. No blazer, no polished look, just wild eyes and a gun in her hand. She screamed, "I've built this for 8 years. Everyone has better homes, better lives because of me. And you want to destroy it all with your stupid questions?" Her mask was gone. Alex tried to reason with her, telling her we could talk it out, but she was too far gone. She pulled the trigger. The sound cracked through the night as Alex stumbled back, blood spilling from his leg. I dropped to my knees, pressing my hands against the wound, shouting for help, my mind racing between saving my friend and surviving this nightmare. Maria heard the shot and arrived just in time, disarming Victoria and taking her into custody. And in her purse, a USB drive with records of a massive insurance fraud operation, 47 homes across multiple states, surveillance logs, schedules of residents' profit margins, even plans for a gas leak in my cabin to make my death look accidental. That was the moment I realized Victoria wasn't just a power-hungry HOA Karen. She was a criminal mastermind running a network so big it made my FBI cases look small. Alex survived, but the bullet left nerve damage that would change his life forever. And me, I spiraled. Sitting alone in my cabin, staring at the bloodstain on my driveway, I asked myself, did I bring this on us? I left the bureau to escape, and instead I dragged my best friend into a fight that cost him his health. Maybe I should have walked away. Maybe ignorance really is bliss. But then I remembered Alex's words before they wheeled him into surgery. "David, make sure they get all the files. There are dozens of other communities. This can't happen to anyone else." That was the moment I decided no more running. I was going to see this through. But Victoria wasn't done. She escaped custody with the help of a bribed guard, leaving behind a note. "You can't burn what's already ash." Within hours, FBI agents were at my door telling me she was on the loose, probably headed to finish the job. SWAT mobilized to hit 2 locations, protect Helen, a widow Victoria had targeted, and storm the Pine Valley HOA office where she was destroying evidence. I went with them, my heart pounding because I knew her mind better than most. I knew she'd make one last stand. We surrounded the office at dawn. Through the windows I saw her, a silhouette against flames, feeding gasoline to piles of burning documents. Over the intercom her voice echoed, "You don't understand. I rebuilt this community. I gave people prosperity. I created the perfect system." She sounded more like a cult leader than a president. Negotiators tried, but she refused. And when she threatened to torch the last of her records, SWAT went in. They found her in the conference room, surrounded by gas cans, screaming, "I'll burn it all down. No one can take this away from me." The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who faked fires for profit was finally caught in the act of starting a real one. She was dragged out in handcuffs, still ranting, still convinced she'd been helping people. But her empire collapsed in hours. Files recovered from the office exposed her entire network: contractors, corrupt officials, fraudulent HOAs across multiple states. Coordinated arrests spread coast to coast. Reporters filmed as neighbors cried with relief, finally seeing the woman they'd trusted unmasked as a predator. Victoria's name became synonymous with greed, manipulation, and betrayal. And that's where it ended. No celebrations, no champagne. Just silence in my cabin, the faint smell of smoke still clinging to my clothes, and the knowledge that the woman who tried to kill us was finally gone. She'd built her power on fear and fraud, but in the end, her lies collapsed like dry timber in a fire. Trust your instincts. When something feels off in your community, don't ignore it, because predators hide best behind positions of authority.